Time for our 2024 lead, please. Maestro, cue the music. Yes, thank you. Nice. The election music. Deep dive into former President Trump and President Biden's accomplishment record. So who got more done? The Washington Monthly just put out a scorecard examining exactly their track records, which could, of course, become a key issue for some voters in November. Joining us now is the Washington Monthly's editor-in-chief, Paul Glastris. Paul, thanks so much for being here. So this is very interesting how you did this. You came up with a definitive list between Trump and Biden just in terms of what they accomplished. Who advanced their agenda more based on certain issues? You have Trump with the most ground when it came to taxes and courts and social issues. You say they tied when it comes to achievement on immigration, veterans, work and family, crime, and cannabis. And then the Biden success list is legislating, trade, and guns, just to name a few. That's a long list over there. What's really interesting about this piece is just it's not necessarily judging the merits of what they did on taxes, but just looking at how successful were they able to be. What's the biggest takeaway you want to share with readers and viewers and voters?
Well, I think people should read the list for themselves. We have 146 specific accomplishments that the two presidents achieved over 21 policy areas. You gave some of the highlights, and they should read it and decide for themselves. But the main takeaway is both presidents got a lot done. The fact is, the numbers show Joe Biden got a lot more done. He was just more successful. And that doesn't mean getting more done the way you would want or I would want. We did this study based on what the president's administrations themselves said they got done.
Yeah.
And we dug into their claims. We threw out the dubious ones and the small ones. And then we described them. We fact-checked them. And when you add them all up, Donald Trump has his accomplishments. Joe Biden has more.
Yeah. Let's look closely at legislation, and this might be a key as to why ultimately in this examination Biden accomplished more. You say Biden wins the category of legislating, largely in part because he took bipartisanship seriously and Trump did not. Explain what you mean.
So Joe Biden, as we all know, is a veteran lawmaker who was patiently willing to work with leaders of the other party in Congress.
Perhaps too much so for some progressives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But as a result, he signed many, many major historic bills. Donald Trump, amateur, had never served in public life, and famously didn't get along with Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. And his inability to cut deals hurt him on his achievements. He's simply signed fewer bills. You know, he came to office with about 10 major bills he wanted to sign. Infrastructure, we remember, was one of them. He didn't get them done. He got a few done. He got a big tax bill done, and that's a category that he wins in our ranking, in our index, presidential accomplishment index. But you know, that is just one where he failed compared to Joe Biden.
So based on all this analysis, and I guess based on what they're saying out there, what they want to accomplish in a second term, if Trump wins a second presidency, what do you think that might look like?
Well, you know, looking at what they did in the past gives you a sense of what they're going to do in the future. One of the things Donald Trump says in private in his fundraisers, because the big money likes to hear it, is he is more proud of his regulatory reform than he is even of his tax cuts. And he had a huge attempt to deregulate the government. He wasn't that successful. 70% of the cases that got brought before the courts, his deregulation, he lost, versus 30% for the average presidency. So he didn't regulate as much as Joe Biden, but the measure is, was he a good deregulator? Not so much. Whereas Joe Biden regulated a lot, but that was what he meant to do. He wanted to use regulations to advance his agenda.
What about a second Biden term? What might that look like?
Well, I think you know, we see in Joe Biden someone who, on national security, believes in supporting the existing international liberal order. This is what he's done in Ukraine. I think we're going to see more of that. With Donald Trump, he has a very different idea about foreign affairs. He's believes in strength. He thinks dictatorships are stronger than democracies, and we can see with him, foresee him being less forgiving of some of NATO's problems, even breaking from NATO, whereas we'll see with Biden more strengthening of NATO.
Yeah. It's interesting. Trump's supporters who want him to get elected in November, they bemoan the fact that some of his greatest accomplishments, such as, for instance, Operation Warp Speed, which, rushed a life-saving vaccine for COVID into people's arms, that he doesn't talk about that because of some of the controversy about vaccine requirements and such.
Right.
And then there's also the Abraham Accords, historic, huge accomplishments, bringing peace and treaties between Israel and several Arab nations. But during the period that Jared Kushner was out there talking about it, Donald Trump was trying to overturn the election.
Right.
So, and in some ways, he's his own worst enemy when it comes to heralding his things that are empirically achievements.
Absolutely. Joe Biden has sometimes the same problem. The United States is creating more oil and putting more oil and natural gas in the markets than any time before. And he doesn't talk about it because it makes some of his environmentalist voters a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, it's funny because you hear Republicans talking about oil regulation and gas regulation and this and that, and then the fact is there's never been more production of domestic fuel in the United States than now.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about this package is we look at things like trade, where both presidents took a tougher line toward China and more of a Build in America approach, but very different overall philosophies and ultimately very different results. Trump leaned much more on tariffs and bilateral deals, and we saw the number of manufacturing jobs not really grow by much, whereas Biden has done international multilateral deals and these investments in manufacturing, and has seen quite a big uptick in manufacturing investment and jobs. So even when they're doing what looks like the same thing, the approaches and the results are different.
Yeah, well, I mean, Biden also kept in a lot of Trump's trade policies.
Absolutely.
They're really not that different when it comes to a lot of it. Anyway, Paul Glastris from the Washington Monthly, fascinating article. Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it.